Hello and welcome back to Gutsy Gals. If you're new to the channel is all about inspiring women to take big leaps despite their age. And up till now, I've been telling my story of my big leap that inspired this channel. And if you'd like to catch up with that, I'll leave the playlist down in the description. Basically, so far, we've come from being an empty nester and being completely depressed to acquiring a horse, to learning how to own a horse, ride a horse, and now to the big part of this leap, which is the big move from the city to the sticks. If you don't mind subscribing and liking down below, and please leave me a comment. What is the leap that you've done or that you're looking at doing? I'd love to hear all about it and engage with you and just start building on this community. So let's get into today's video. Well, after the training, which is what I talked about in the last video, I was on fire with that horse. I rode all over Colorado mountains and had just some epic, wonderful, fun rides, and had those rides with some wonderful women. And I just had such a great time. I was spending a lot of time down at the where I was boarding Nash at this time. I had moved him once again and found another great place that I was able to make some more friends and have my own little posse of riders and people we could have fun with while on our horses. It was fantastic. But during all of that, this boarding facility was literally in the foothills there in Colorado, and it was beautiful. I spent all my time down there, just enjoyed it, enjoyed helping out, learning things as I went, and just kept thinking to myself, this is the life I want. I want this. I want to have my own little ranch and my horse right next to me and be able to ride whenever I wanted to ride. And you know, everybody wants that when they're down in those kind of places on a ranch. They think, wow, this is what I want. And so when people hear that from people, they think, yeah, well, okay, sure, like you'll never do it. And but that wasn't my story. I loved it so much that it just weighed on me. I really needed to get my own property, keep my horse so that I could go ride whenever I wanted to ride. I was working unbelievable hours, traveled with my job. So the time that I had, I wanted to be able to just hop out back, hop on a horse and go for a ride. I even started getting into, with the help of my friend, doing obstacle courses and preparing to actually do some competition in that arena with my horse in obstacle course. So I was really enjoying all that training I was doing, teaching my horse how to go upstairs, and we were going through, you know, all kinds of different water and platforms and rocks, just really teaching him how to be a gray horse, going through obstacles and being secure in himself, and me be a secure rider. So during this process, I get laid off from my job. And I just thought, you know, this is the perfect time for me to actually try to make this dream come together, that I was going to get my own property, my own little ranch, and make that happen by selling my house, finding a ranch. So I started looking in Colorado. Well, things have gotten crazy in Colorado, as I've mentioned before, and the prices for property had gone way up. And I did put a bid on a couple properties, and they fell through because there was some problem with the property. And if you don't know Colorado very much, water is kind of a big commodity. It's very dry there. So having a well or having to put in a new well on a property can be quite an ordeal. I kind of started socializing with friends and people that I was thinking of selling my house in the suburbs and getting myself a little ranch. And just like with my horse, I got a lot of pushback. You know, it's really difficult to buy property. There's a well and you got to go through the well certification. There's septic systems. It's just, it can, and it's a lot of work to take care of a property by yourself. You know, this all sounded so familiar about when I got the horse. When I got Nash, everybody said, what are you doing? Sell that horse. You can't keep that horse. So I was kind of getting the same pushback when I wanted to buy property, move to property by myself and take care of it. So after looking around in Colorado and not having any luck, I decided, I guess I'm leaving the state. So I started looking for my dream property anywhere that I thought I could live. I can't handle huge amounts of humidity. I knew certain areas of the country would be way too expensive. So in essence, I started kind of looking north from Colorado, which included, you know, parts of Nebraska and Montana and Wyoming. And, you know, there was a little part of me maybe trying to replace what I had with the Rocky Mountains there in Colorado without probably really thinking about it. But I did. I loved the weather in Colorado. I loved the mountains. It just had gotten so packed with people, and it was just too difficult to try to find a little property for myself so that I could do this dream that I had in my mind. So as I start looking for properties out of state, you know, every state's a little different for buying property. In Nebraska, for example, where I saw the first property I looked at, you know, you have to go to each realtor's website. It's not like you can just do it in go to one place. They have to, it's a little more sporadic the way that they handle real estate in Nebraska, I felt. So I had to do a lot of that legwork, and there was a property I came across, a couple actually, one in Montana, one in Idaho, and then this one property in Nebraska. Now, I really didn't think I'd ever considered Nebraska, but where I saw this property and the way it was advertised, it looked like it was right in the middle of some mountains. And I honestly didn't know that existed in Nebraska. So that next weekend, off I go to go look at it. And it's in the hills. I had no idea there was a national forest up here in the north, very far northwest part of Nebraska. And all these bluffs and a lot of hills, and it was actually quite gorgeous. So the property I looked at was steep, though. It had 80 acres, lots of hills. It was going to be steep. And even though I thought this could be a great place, something kicked in and said, you don't really want to be crawling up and down these hills in the wintertime. So I tell the realtor that, no, this is probably not quite for me. This is more what I'm looking for. And he had a second property. So off we go look at that property. It ended up being perfect. It's the one I bought. 30 acres, a river running through it, 2 wells, some outbuildings, a big shop, a little tiny house that needs some updating, some work. But this gorgeous pasture, lots of grass. I really was looking for the property, not the house that was sitting on it. And I knew right then and there, that was the house. It felt it was perfect. So I put an offer in, and right away it was accepted. And now it was time to go back to Colorado, do the work on my house and get it sold. Well, I got all of that done, laid down some floors, got the whole house painted, got it on the market and sold. So now it's time to move. Well, you know, I was going through empty nest syndrome prior to really all of this starting. And so I had lived in a house that I had my 2 children in, and I had bedding for each room. I had towels for every bathroom. I had the holiday dishes and the regular dishes, you know, everything you acquire when you're raising a family. And I thought to myself, you know, I'm moving to property. I'm just going to move it all and deal with it when I get there. I was just so excited about getting there that was my thought process. Now, I will say one of the pieces of wisdom that I would share to anybody that is getting ready to take a leap, that it requires a move maybe, downsize first. Get rid of everything first. Don't take it all with you, because I moved it all up here where much smaller home, and I'm still 3-4 years into it. I haven't gone through everything. It's out there in that big shop on a second level. So I've learned my lesson, and I pass that on as much as I can. Don't move it all thinking it'd be easier once you get to the new place. Start getting through it, get rid of it, just slim it down, because now I'm in the process of having to slim it all down, and it's a lot of work. Plus, it was a lot of work to move so much stuff. On top of it, because I decided to move everything and not go through it first, it took like 2 big moving trucks. It took my horse trailer, my pickup full, everything shoved in there as much as I could get to move it all up 4.5 hours away to northwest Nebraska. So off we go. Everything's loaded, everything's ready to go, and we head on out. Now, I had only seen the house one time. I took a bunch of pictures of the property, and that's what I focused on for 4 months while I was getting my house ready to go. And so the anticipation was big. We pull up here. Now, it took us much longer than 4.5 hours, as you can imagine, with moving trucks. But we pull in here, and it was the sticks. I was seriously moving to the country. And when you haven't really checked out your new place, maybe you see it the first time and off you go, you really don't know what you don't know. And that is kind of what happened with me. So they get it all unloaded. It shouldn't take long for them to unload everything into the big shop and bring in the house stuff that I needed, the furniture, because now I'm going to be out here by myself. It's not like I'm going to have a second pair of hands to move everything in and out, in and out. So right after the movers often leave, I need to head back to Colorado, because now I got to go back to get the horse. And so I start back there, stay the night back in Colorado, and then load up my horse, and we come back up to the property. So I unload him and realized very quickly that the fences around the property needed work, or he would get out. I needed some gates and fencing just to make a round pen. I didn't have any of that. So immediately we tie him up and off to the hardware store in the little town next to me that's like, I don't know, 700-800 people in population, very small little town. And I start loading up. I get some of those things that I need, bring it back, start setting it all up, and I'm pretty motivated. You know, I'm all by myself. I've got to get this done. I have a horse that needs to be kind of corralled up, and so I just start head into it. And after that first day of getting back with my horse and getting him a corral that he could be in, it was quite a day. And so sleep on it all overnight and get up the next morning. Well, that's when the reality hits that I don't know anybody. I've moved to nowhere, and I did it so fast. I hadn't thought a whole ton about what access I had to things around me. You know, I needed the internet because my job, I was typically a remote employee. I needed to figure out the wells and how they worked, and electricity and the septic system and just the systems with the house. It was kind of a lot. It would have been great if I'd have brought somebody with me to help me kind of navigate some of those things. But every day was an adventure right out of the gate. I was actually enjoying myself. I ordered a tractor that got delivered in that first week or so, which I had no idea how to drive a tractor. I just named it my tractor Peaches, which we'll see in other videos. And the people that delivered it, they had to show me how to drive it. I didn't even know how to I didn't know how to drive it. Tractors are very different than a car. So I got a tractor that kind of helped me start moving, you know, piles of wood and stuff. And the people that left this house had left a lot of stuff in some of the outbuildings, in this house, in the shop. There was things that had to go to the dump. Just that piece of it was a lot of work right out of the gate. But most important was getting the fencing done. So I kind of started in on the fencing, started in on making sure, I had water that was run to my horse and that I had to find hay right away. So I did that. And it was quite an experience when I had never owned property, had to take care of my horse 100% of the time. It was all a learning experience, but boy, was it exciting. I just couldn't believe I was here. I was on this property. I had a river. It was so different than living in the city, that it was just so novel and great. And I could see my horse right from my kitchen window, and I could walk right off the back deck and pet him and give him some love and some treats. And I had my little dog, which I very quickly realized he was not a farm dog, for sure. He's all of 7 pounds, that little guy. And there was a lot of mowing that needed to be done here. Boy, mowing, that's a piece of my life that we'll talk about also in the future. But he got lost in it, and I had to watch him very, very closely and quickly realized that I also had to be very careful that he didn't get eaten by something. Now, during this time, I hadn't met anybody yet. I have 2 neighbors, one across the dirt road a little ways, and they're big cattle ranchers. And then another neighbor that shares the entrance road that's just a little ways from me. And he was gone. He had gone on some vacation. So I hadn't met anybody. And that first, I think it was the second night or the third night, I had the biggest scare and realized I need to meet some people. I had never dealt with ticks, and I ended up with a tick on my back. He was huge. Obviously, he'd been there a while, and I'd never dealt with a tick. And it was in a place I couldn't reach, and I couldn't possibly go to bed with this thing on my back. I didn't know what to do. I was looking it up online. I was freaking out. Yes, I was freaking out. I was like a city girl in the sticks, and I was freaking out over this tick. So I'd heard if you do a hot match or whatever, well, I couldn't reach my back. It was literally in the middle of my back. So I got a skewer, a long metal skewer, heated it up over a lighter because I didn't have gas in the tank for the stove yet, and tried to hold it back there bright red to try to make him back out. Well, I had no real control over this thing, so I ended up searing him and my back all at the same time. He ended up being a crispy critter and still didn't come off. He was still attached to me. I was just fit to be tied. So then I took some tongs from the kitchen and reached back there and tried to grab hold of it and then pulled it off. Well, half of them came. The other half was still there, so I just scraped it off. Sure enough, by the next morning, that was all swollen up. It was already getting infected. I had to go to the emergency room because I'd left half that tick stuck and in me still, and I was getting an infection. So I had to get, antibiotics. They had to dig the rest of it out. And I very quickly realized at that moment, I'm gonna need to meet some people, because if that neighbor of mine had been home, I hadn't even met him yet. I was so freaked out about this tick. I'd have showed up over there with my shirt lifted in the back saying, "Hi, we've not met, but do you know how to take a tick off?" So, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. And so in my haste, I just fried him, got him off, and one disaster, emergency, first experience in the sticks under my belt. I'm ready to take on the rest of it. So during this time that I'm getting acclimated, I think that's the best word for it, I had a saying in my head and I called it venture on. Just keep venturing on. You got this. Just venture on. It's a venture, uh, uh, an adventure, an exciting, new, challenging part of my life, and I got myself there, which I was very proud of myself, made it all happen, you know, from getting moved, the whole works. Now I got to make it work. So that's what our channel is going to be about is a lot of the things that I've learned while I've been here. But one more piece of this story I have to tell in the next video. It really was a moment that made me second guess the whole thing. So I hope you come back to hear that part of the story. And if you don't mind, I'll remind you again, if you don't mind, could you like and subscribe? And I've linked the some other videos from the playlist of this story for you up here. And I really look forward to being able to talk to you in the next video. Have a wonderful day.